altyd saam, met lyding en hoop, verdriet en saam staan jy staan. Jy is altyd daar. Dit wat ons doen, ons liefdes, ons vreugdes, ons plekke, ons thuisdes, tot daar waar ons reis, jy is daar. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Al verander straatname, al word helde laat val, ons is steeds deur ons adem, ons kultuur, ons verhaal, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Ons is daarmee gebore, die taal waarvoor ons staan, dit vloei deur ons are, ons kinders praat het saam, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou 'n sein, met 'n boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir my mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense. Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down.
Alright, here we are, folks.
Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes, they know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise, you know that we gonna light it up. Tonight, we gonna light it up. Tonight, we gonna light it up. Just like the sunrise, we gonna light it up.
Welcome back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that since I'm in town in Boulders, folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa.
Guys, I don't know who's on the M1, just after Gold Reef City, on the interchange, Gold Reef interchange. This is M1 merging into M2 East, coming from Crown Mines. There are 5 guys walking around with 9mm in their hands, literally robbing car after car. It was a scene, a horrific scene to watch. Targeting female drivers in their cars. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, guys, if anyone can call the cops, get anyone emergency vehicles. It's a mess. People are overreacting. They're crashing their cars into the barrier lane because they're scared that they're being robbed in their cars. One guy is already on the floor. He's been hit with the back of a 9mm. It's bad, guys. Can anyone, anywhere, please summon whoever you can call, emergency vehicles, police, whatever you can summon. Please send them to the M1 on the Crown interchange, coming from Johannesburg South into Johannesburg, coming from where they merge between M2, coming from Crown Mines into Johannesburg as well. In that interchange, please send emergency vehicles. People are being terrorized in their cars. There's 5 guys, all of them are wielding 9mm weapons, brandishing them out. Please send emergency vehicles. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome to the ANC's South Africa, a land of glorious equality, of misery for all, where broad daylight smash and grab robberies take place in a traffic jam just outside Gold Reef City today. This is the new South Africa, brought to you by the New World Order and leftist hate wankers around the world. Inequality, murder, rape, mayhem, corruption, HIV, cholera, collapsing infrastructure. This is South Africa in 2024. Welcome to the joys of socialist rule, coming to a state near you, right here in the United States and around the world. Europeans already getting a sense of it now. Welcome back to the program, folks. Today is February 20th, 2024. It's Chris live in central Pennsylvania with today's daily injection. Get your jab. Get it right there. Get your jab. Daily news, unbiased, cogent, lucid analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, we are rapidly approaching the 33rd anniversary of the end of Operation Desert Storm. As a veteran of that campaign, wear my hat briefly here, Operation Desert Storm ended on February 28th, 1991, after 100 hours of ground combat and 6 weeks of aerial combat, which led to the rejection, the removal of Iraqi illicit forces that invaded the sovereign state of Kuwait and restored the sovereignty to the Kingdom of Kuwait, protecting the world's oil so that Europeans and Japanese wouldn't go hungry and starve. Yep. There you go. Welcome back, folks. 33 years since the Gulf War. Can you imagine that? 33 years. It's already been 21 years since Operation Iraqi Freedom began. 21 years since Operation Iraqi Freedom. The world is absolutely bat crap crazy. Welcome back to the program today, folks. I am wearing rugby kit today. This awesome polo that I got for it's France rugby. I'm not a fan of France rugby, but it's a really cool polo. So, yeah. I ordered this when it was 70% off. So, hey, how cool is that? Good deal. Yeah, D-Stu says, well, it has been a long time. Indeed, it has. Let's say hello to everyone in the chat. We're going to get to the news here shortly. But the African National Congress, ladies and gentlemen, is bat crap scared. They are wetting and crapping their nappies right now. The ANC is terrified about the impact of Mkhonto we Sizwe, the renegade political party led by none other than the convicted felon Jacob Zuma. Yep, none other than him. That's right. Wow, former president of the Republic of South Africa and leader of the African National Congress, a man who stole state resources to build himself a palatial mansion in KwaZulu-Natal, a man who took illicit payments from the arms deal, according to Judge Hillary Squires, not according to me, just reporting the facts as they came out in court, a man who is for all occasions Jacob Zuma. That's right. The MK party has the ANC wetting its nappies at this hour, folks. They are terrified, doing everything they can to discredit or remove them from the voting rolls in 2024 because the ANC knows that it's now in jeopardy of losing KwaZulu-Natal. Before the formation of the MK party in late 2023, there was a small chance or a decent chance that the ANC would lose KwaZulu-Natal to a combination in the multi-party charter between the Inkatha Freedom Party and the Democratic Alliance, both of which are gaining support in the province. Small chance that they would actually take control. Now, with ANC voters shedding like viral particles and flocking to a party without a constitution, without a manifesto, without a budget, without a headquarters, without even proper registration, according to the ANC is in deep kimchi. They are in deep Korean cabbage smelly stew. That's where they're at, folks. They have lots of problems as we approach the 2024 national elections. And they can blame no one. No one. They can't blame Jan van Riebeck. They can't blame apartheid. They can't blame white monopoly capital from Bell Potton. They cannot blame racist right South Africans. No. There's only one culprit in the ANC's demise, and that is the African National Congress itself. A corrupt kleptocracy which has abandoned its responsibility to govern. I mean, look at the impact. Look at the results. When I drive near Brits, there are no power lines. There are no communication lines, which have all been ripped up. The rails do not function. The motorway between Durban and the High Veld is clogged with semi-trucks, mostly driven by illegal, unlicensed, uninsured foreign nationals, destroying the road surface meant for passenger vehicles and a small number of trucks. Why? Because the rail system has been destroyed. South Africa sends a delegation to Russia to talk about ending neocolonialism. We are tired of exporting our minerals. Hey, Rocco, your minerals aren't coming to America, and they mostly aren't going to Europe. They're going to China, and you do so willingly. Your black-owned BEE enterprises owning all the big mining houses are shipping their minerals to China. The neocolonialism, if it exists, is facilitated and enabled by the ANC, not by white monopoly capital, not by apartheid, certainly not by poor Jan van Riebeck, the first colored governor of the Cape Colony of South Africa. There you go, folks. There you go. That's the reality. The ANC is the culprit. They are responsible for their demise and no one else. No one else bears any culpability in the collapse of the ANC. By the way, 4.37 kilowatt hours at this hour, getting 3.55 as the sun begins to work its way to the west and hit my panels directly with that ultraviolet radiation, those photons of light, energizing those panels, making them dance for their dinner like Trevor Noah. Woo! Yeah, that's right. Dance for dinner. And it is 11:20 right now on the East Coast, 4.37. Yesterday, I didn't set the record, but got the second highest solar production day in the history of my panel since November. Today, let's see how it goes. We'll take a look at the top of the hour and see how we're doing. Let me say hello to everyone here before we get back into the story about the ANC being terrified, absolutely terrified of Umkhonto Sizwe. Val Cooper's here, Carlos Mango, the Rand sinks. Yep. Yvonne Brink, great potential, nothing to show for it. Yep. Ans is here, Teresa, Val Cooper, I said already, Pierre Orban, all the way in from Budapest. Thanks for being here, Pierre. Matthew Dixon, oh my goodness. No, Santa's not late. Santa was busy. Folks, this isn't the only thing I do. Remember that. I would say that I have a 99% on-time arrival for my streams, provided YouTube allows me to start them. You know, every now and then they play games. I've only been late a handful of times, and it's because of something else. Reindeer took a wrong turn, says Ashley. No, the reindeer didn't take a wrong turn. They were outside dealing with other business. Vilma Rasmus is here. Erica, hi, Erica. How are you today? Dusty. Gabriel in from Switzerland. Gabriel. Peter John Wurst says good evening. Good evening to you. Monray Sieberts, Hester Kotze, excuse me. Philip van Niekerk. War die ANC se kakstraal in die straat vloei? I don't know how to pronounce that word. Ons woop dit spoelwoord word die ja uitgestaan. Whoa, that's a tough one to say, Philip, that last one. Uitgestaan. I don't know what that means. Uit is out. Gestaan looks like gestern from German. Ulrich Fenta, welcome to you. Can't drive in Pretoria anymore, says Vilma. Well, I always drive on Schoeman. I'm sorry, Francis Bard Boulevard in Pretoria. Net so, Chris. Snaks dat hulle nog nie die Drollstraat nie het nie. Okay. And Garrett is in from Somerset West. Eric is saying hello to everybody. Dusty. Pip Jacobs Volke. Ulrich Fenter, I said, D-Stew. The world is going crazy. Indeed it is. And who else we got there? Brazil has hit squad police for crime areas. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But we don't have that in South Africa, do we? Greetings, Dusty. Generic component, these people being criminals. Well, it's definitely a generic component to somebody being. Can you understand Afrikaans when they speak? Yes, ek verstaan. Maar one must speak slowly and without a high veld accent. Those guys in Northwest throw me off. Yeah, no, I can understand lots of it. It's because I listen to Afrikaans music. It helps. Now, I mean, I got to be honest. When I was improving my Afrikaans, listening to Snotkop really confused me. Von Recht, the ANC doesn't care about the truth. They care about power, just like the Democrats, just like the rhinos in the Republican Party. All they care about is power, not governance. Marilyn Brokenshaw, welcome to you. Marty VB, welcome. Bruce H is here. Artie Pandey, hello, young lady. Welcome back. Matthew Dixon, Gestan voted out. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Gestan, that's voting? I didn't know that was voting. I learned a new verb. Thank you. Wow. I could have had a V8. Actually, I'm having a V8. Good stuff. No, back to the story at hand, folks. The African National Congress is absolutely terrified that it will lose this election in KZN because of the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, and with good reason. So they're taking all the stops out. A party that had no money, was bankrupt, and should not even be in the election. Where did the money come from? Why is there not an investigation into the ANC suddenly coming up with 102 million rand to pay its debt and then hosting a 20 million rand party in Nelspruit? That's 122 million rand at a minimum. Where's the investigation? This party's accounts were examined by forensic analysts, and in late November, they had the equivalent of 5,000 US dollars. 5,000 US dollars. That's right, folks. I didn't mumble, I didn't stumble, I didn't put the wrong zeros, I didn't put the wrong comma. $5,000. They had less money in their checking account than my credit card bill. Yeah, but suddenly they have 102 million rand. How about investigation into the African National Congress's finance? How about they report to the Independent Electoral Commission their illicit money? It can be nothing else. They failed to report to the IEC the 122 million rand. Someone gave the ANC 122 million rand. Where is the outrage? Why is nobody upset about this? Why is nobody in the fake media at News 24, IOL, Times Live, the Daily Maverick, the Mail and Guardian, Rapport, the Burger, any of these corrupt publications, why aren't they reporting? Where did the ANC get 122 million rand from? Why am I the only person in the world asking this question? That's what I'd like to know. Inquiring minds would like to know. Vilma, use the email address and I'll get it. Yeah. 122 million rand at a minimum. At a minimum. Who knows how much money they got? Now, some people claim that it came from Iran. Perhaps it did. I have no evidence of that. But I have no evidence of where it came from because the ANC is opaque, not transparent. They need to be transparent and they're not. Well, as I said, the ANC is terrified of the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, and with good reason. John Steenhuisen said that it only helps the DA. Probably should stay away from that comment, not mention them, just let it slide. But unlawful MK registration threatens the integrity of the electoral system, ANC argues. I think the 122 million rand of illicit funds that it appears the ANC got is a greater threat to democracy than the formation of yet another political party to add to the 363 currently registered for the elections in 2024. I don't really think that's a big impact, MK. It's a big impact. It's not a threat to democracy, ladies and gentlemen. Andile incorrectly is not a threat to democracy. It is, however, a threat to the African National Congress. By the way, did you know that Andile Lungisa, the gentleman from Nelson Mandela Bay who broke a water jug over another councillor's head, and is a convicted criminal, is a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. Did you know that? I didn't know that. I discovered that last night, researching that Andile Lungisa, Ronaldo Khos' best friend, that was sarcasm for those who don't know that, is a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Wow. Wow. Brian Cox says, greetings from Amazon, Texas. I mean, is that supposed to be Amazon Tony? The sewage still flowing to the sea, ANC posters everywhere. Of course. And who's paying for the posters? Tehran? The theocrats in Tehran? The fascists there? Bell Pottinger? Who's paying for it? Who's paying for it? Well, if the Electoral Court does not rule that the Umkhonto we Sizwe party's registration as political office was unlawful, the integrity of the electoral system will be called into question. The ANC has pleaded its case against the Electoral Commission of South Africa. Wow. Only it won't call into question the integrity of the election. What it will do is jeopardize the dominance of the ANC, which is set to lose the Western Cape, Gauteng, and KZN provinces to opposition parties. Yeah. Well, speaking of how good things are going in South Africa, the rand has dropped once again to below 19 rand to the dollar, despite the fact that my government bastardizes our currency with illicit movement of funds, with transfers of money around the world to theocracies like Tehran, and also it spends money that doesn't exist. The undermining of the U.S. dollar, if that wasn't going on, the rand would be 70 to 1, but it eclipses 19 to 1 yet again. The rand breached the 19 rand threshold when compared to the dollar today, as the markets and economy anticipate the fiscal policies from Finance Minister Enoch Gondwana will implement on Wednesday when he tables the 2024 budget speech. That's not much of a rise to 19, but it's not looking good for the rand. Well, what was Cyril Ramaphosa's role in the illegitimate violation of South African hiring practices cater deployment program? Well, we don't know. The DA is making a lot of noise about something will come out of this, but do you really think the ANC actually was dumb enough? Well, they could be. It's the ANC. Dumb enough to send incriminating records? I mean, after all, they couldn't find most of the records. We looked and we couldn't find any records from 2012 to 2017, the most consequential years of the state capture era, when Cyril Ramaphosa directed the deployment of incompetent, unqualified Luthuli House loyalists throughout the government, undermining governance delivery. Service delivery. Yeah. No. Yep. What was Ramaphosa's role? The DA's Leon Schreiber said his party would study the records to ascertain whether the ANC had complied with the court order in full. They haven't. If the ANC has erased or manipulated parts of the information or sought to otherwise undermine the Constitutional Court's orders, the DA will launch further action to hold the ANC leaders personally accountable. He added, as soon as we have processed the voluminous documentation, the DA will fulfill our longstanding undertaking to make public the ANC's dirty cater secrets for every South African to see. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but I suspect you're not going to find any smoking guns, and that's unfortunate because we know there will definitely be smoking guns there. Yep, definitely be smoking guns. The Al Kuwait cattle ship docked in Cape Town is really torquing off a lot of South Africans. 74,000 of whom have signed a petition to stop the transport of live animals by ship. The only problem is these live animals didn't come from South Africa. So you can sign all the petitions you want. The ship is from Brazil. Yep. Over 74,000 South Africans have so far pledged their support to ongoing calls that the shipment of live farm animals be halted. This comes after residents in Cape Town bemoaned a strong sewage-like odor enveloping parts of the city, particularly Woodstock, Observatory, Greenpoint, and the Central Business District. In a statement released today, chairperson at Beauty Without Cruelty South Africa, Tony Brockhoven, said the organization has called for an immediate moratorium on live farm animal exports and wants South African government to act decisively in this matter. Of course, the problem with this is this ship is from Brazil. The vessel is the Al Kuwait, is en route to the Middle East. It was docked at the Cape of Port Town from Brazil to load animal feed for the livestock on board. And so South Africans want to stick their values into the global community, like they did in the ICJ over Israel. Stop. You know, it's Cyril Ramaphosa is fond of talking, and so is Idi Amin. I'm sorry, no, Yoweri Museveni. So I get confused. They're so much like each other. Yoweri Museveni in Uganda and Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa are fond of talking about Westerners interjecting their values and sticking their nose in our African business. Well, who are you to tell Brazilians they can't ship livestock to the Middle East so that Muslims can enjoy their food? Who are you, South Africa? Who are you 74,000 South Africans who signed this petition? I think we'd like to know. Pretty high on your horse there. Are you the same clowns that showed up and protesting against car power ship? It's going to pollute. It's going to harm wildlife. It's going to harm the sea. The same clowns on the beach. No deep water zoning. No deep water sonar. Yeah. All right. Great. Now you have no natural gas. You're dependent on Iran for your oil. There you go. With the collapse of Sasol. Well, the Gauteng government owes e-tolls. You know what? This is such a scam. As a visitor to South Africa, I get hit every time with those bogus e-tolls from those little, I don't know, like alien toll things with the purple lights when you go through them. Every time my credit card gets charged. Yet the government of Gauteng simply refuses to pay. Now, that's not fair. Tourists getting fleeced when a system was supposed to be dismantled. The Gauteng government to borrow cash to pay 12 billion e-toll debt in installments. Can you believe that? Details of how much the province will pay over the time frame to be revealed in the Gauteng budget. Wow. provincial government's been in tough negotiations with the Treasury and the National Department of Transport on how much the debt would fall to the province and from where the money could be sourced. What a brain-dead concept this was. Do you know why they're dismantling e-tolls? Because people would just refuse to pay them. Not because it was illegitimate, not because it was unfair, but people just refused to pay the e-tolls, so they got rid of them. They got rid of them. They never should have been put up in the first place. It was just a scam to make money for BEE companies. Well, South Africa, once again, at the International Court of Justice, demanding that a two-state solution is no longer enough. The apartheid government of Israel must make accommodations to the indigenous population of Palestine. Well, it's not Palestine, and the indigenous population is living there now. The people who the Romans evicted have come back. Some of them never left. The Israeli attack on Gaza has its roots in the international community that allowed apartheid to flourish there, South Africa told the International Court of Justice on Tuesday. See, here's the problem with that statement. Gaza has no Jews. You see, in 2005, Jews who lived there for decades, centuries, were removed by Israel. They lost their homes, their businesses, their farms. They were taken from them. They were removed and taken to Israel because it was unsafe for them to remain there under the terrorist PLO leadership, the Fatah, and then eventually Hamas. So there were no Jews in Gaza. What apartheid is there? It's governed by the Palestinian Authority, led by Hamas. The legal authority in Gaza is Hamas, not Israel, not Jerusalem. So what is this apartheid that the African National Congress is talking about in Gaza? It's separate development to the detriment of Christians and Jews who are not allowed to live there. But it's run by Palestinians. If there's apartheid in Gaza, it's a consequence of the Palestinians, not of the Israelis. Can you believe the stupidity of this? They actually take these arguments to the International Court of Justice. Idiots. And there's Ronnie Lamola yucking it up, getting a free taxpayer trip to Brussels. Yep. Well, South Africa's ambassador, Vusi Muzi Mandosela, asked them to find Israel's occupation illegal. South Africa on Tuesday urged the International Court of Justice to issue a non-binding legal opinion that the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories is illegal, arguing that it would help efforts to reach a settlement. Here's the problem with this. We live in a Westphalian system of states. Here's a newsflash for the leftists out there, and even for the people on the far right. We live in a Westphalian system of states. Since the Peace of Westphalia ended the 30 Years' War, the religious conflict that embroiled Central Europe and killed a third or half of all inhabitants of what is today Germany, the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, we've lived in an international order that is based off of that. States are sovereign. States have rights. Here's the thing. War is a legitimate means of political discourse. It's an unfortunate means, but it is legitimate. That's why we have the law of land warfare. We have international treaties. We have the Geneva Conventions to govern conduct in war. We wouldn't have those things if war was simply illegal. If war was simply a crime, we would not have those things to regulate the conduct of warfare. But warfare is a legitimate means of conflict. Now, political discourse. Let's put this in perspective. Illegal occupation. The United Nations declared that South Africa's mandate over Southwest Africa was illegal. Now, the problem with that is that mandate was issued by the League of Nations, which folded up its tent in the 1930s when it proved to be feckless after Munich. Gone. But South Africa had a mandate. The UN said that's illegal. On the basis of what? But that argument was more legally sound than the one they're making in Israel. You see, in 1948, the Arabs from Transjordan, from Syria, from Egypt, from Israel, all attacked Jews and Jewish settlements in Israel, including Jews who've been there for thousands of years. And the Jews held on and won. And the state of Israel existed. In 1956, all these Arabs once again teamed up and did a sneak attack against Israel. The Israelis defended themselves and won that war again. In 1967, as Syrian forces massed, as Egyptian forces prepared to launch an attack against Israel, the government of Israel launched a 6-day preemptive war, which ended the threat and destroyed the Egyptian and Syrian and Jordanian air forces on the ground and pummeled their forces. The Israelis captured the entire Sinai, built the Bar-Lev defense line along the Suez Canal. They captured the Golan Heights from Syria, which had been used repeatedly to put artillery pieces up there to attack civilians, and now they occupied it. And they captured Judea, fraudulently known as the West Bank of the Jordan River. It's Judea. And they captured all of Jerusalem. In 1973, the Arabs again sneak attacked during a religious holiday, Yom Kippur, and attempted to destroy the state of Israel, and again were defeated. Again, 48, 56, 67, 73, defeated. Israel has won these territories, including Gaza, in war. They voluntarily return Gaza to these Palestinians. That is not an illegal occupation. It's not even occupied. There are no Jews there. This is a fantasy. In the minds, the warped minds of ANC politicians, more concerned about Palestinians than they are about Gaza. More concerned about Palestinians than they are about Venda. More concerned about Palestinians than they are about Zulu or Basutu or Tswana or Coloreds or Cape Malays or Griquas or Afrikaners, Portuguese, Germans, South Africans. They don't care about you. Their sole focus is on getting money from some grifter that's funding them by taking these arguments and polluting the waters at the International Court of Justice, which has no authority whatsoever over Israel on this matter. It is not an illegal occupation. They have won this territory through conquest as a consequence of being attacked and defending themselves. They could have gone further and wiped out Jordan or taken Cairo, but they weren't foolish enough to do that. Well, more bright news for South Africa. The Cook statistics, which I think are wholly unbelievable, report now that over 8 million are jobless in South Africa. Wow. Fourth quarter unemployment rate rose 0.2% to 32.1 from 31.9, as if you believe that. It's more like 60 or 80%. According to this, 16.7 million people are employed. Yeah, the problem with that is they include the informal sector, in which they can have no actual numbers to prove that. With the formal sector, they can actually gauge the number of people in employment, and it looks like that number has risen back to where it was pre-Rona. Before the pandemic political scam, the number of jobs have come back to where they were, despite the folding up of thousands of businesses, including restaurants, tourism companies, hotels, and lodges. It's back. But the informal sector here, they claim that 3.2 million people are working there and 1.1 million people working in private households. Yeah. That's 4.3 million. That's a good 30% of the actual people they claim are employed. So I'm telling you, they're not actually employed. You can add that 4.3 million to the 8 million and give you at least 12 million unemployed South Africans. Yep. SANRAL, the South African parastatal, is increasing tolls. Well, we were just talking about e-tolls. They're increasing tolls. Like when you go through the Mui River toll plaza, headed down to KZN, you know that place where the insurrectionists from the ANC burned 100 semi-trucks owned by black individuals? Remember that back in July 2021? Yeah, that's right. Yep. SANRAL will raise tariffs in line with the Consumer Price Index. Tariffs at toll gates across country are going to increase by 6.25%. Wow. Last year it went up by 6.58. So the tolls you're paying tomorrow, well, March 1st, will be 13% higher than they were a little over a year ago. 13% in a little over a year. Wow. Can you imagine that? Well, a new date is set for the end of e-tolls. We're spending a lot of time talking about tolls in South Africa today, aren't we? Yeah, here we go. A new date. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi set March 31st as the date for scrapping the e-tolls. These weird purple lights that I think are radiating us. There's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, they're definitely radiating us with that light taking the tolls. Yeah. Well, Sanlam is dumping its investment in MultiChoice, saying it's no longer competitive or a great growth engine. That's bad news for the satellite television company. Sanlam Private Wealth says it sold MultiChoice out of most of its clients' portfolios due to the relatively high risk and low potential upside they see. We've taken a fresh look at the group's prospects, and it's not business we would like to own over the long term, said Sanlam investment analyst Dimusani Chiume. We decided to wait for the long-term expected buyout offer before exiting at a price close to our own fair value. Now, there was a recent buyout offer that came from Canal Plus, the French company, beginning of February, and so MultiChoice was at 103 Rand, or 105 is the buyout price. So they're selling it. They're getting rid of the investment. So good luck with that. Now, this one's a heartbreaker for me. As a huge fan of Dion Fourie, the Springbok and the Stormer, a fantastic talent who was illegitimately kept from being on the Springboks roster for years until he reached the point where he was the oldest ever debutant Springbok in history. He's been excluded from Rossi Erasmus's latest poll. Proof that, once again, that sports, like life, is competitive. And it doesn't matter what you did for me. Even though Dion Fourie remains in top form, he is not part of the Springboks' plans. And this is a heartbreaker. Very disappointing to see this, folks. Very disappointing. If anybody earned it, the reason they won the World Cup is Dion Fourie. The reason they won the World Cup is Dion Fourie. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, they won the World Cup because of this man. They would not have won that game without this man. Dion Fourie's omission from Bok's alignment camp signals probable end to his short but brilliant Test career. Surprise 2023 Rugby World Cup final hero Dion Fourie might not have another chance to reprise the gladiatorial role he fulfilled so wonderfully in Paris 14 weeks ago after being omitted from his Springbok alignment camp. Dion Fourie, now 37, is certainly not the future for Springboks, but he still has a player of the national interest contract, which makes his initial omission curious. He has not retired from Test rugby, and sources at the Stormers say he was devastated to be overlooked for his first camp of 2024, which starts on March 5th. While it's obvious that Springbok coach Erasmus has to combine winning and rebuilding in certain positions, leaving out Dion Fourie suggests a slight change in approach. Wow. He was picked at the age of 35 back in 2022. So what's going to happen now? We're going to rely on Marco van Staden. Dion Fourie left off the squad. That sucks. That sucks big time, folks. Well, neighboring e-commerce capital of all of Africa, that would be Eswatini, folks. Eswatini's prime minister threatens a media clampdown. Well, surprise, surprise. They're trying to get a editor from Swaziland who is living in Mpumalanga extradited back to there, claiming he's a terrorist. Yeah, these people don't understand the concept of liberty in the last total monarchy in all of Africa. Eswatini's new prime minister plans to implement media regulation. Russell Dlamini told editors that their failure to activate self-regulation would see the government stepping in. In a meeting with members of the Eswatini Editors Forum at the cabinet offices on February 14th, nice Valentine's present, Dlamini said he would enact the long-dormant Media Commission bill to create government-controlled media regulation body. He frowned at the Media Complaints Commission, which is a self-regulatory mechanism that's still not operational. He said if the editors were failing to be operationalized, the government would have to revisit the Media Commission bill. So basically, Eswatini is angry that they don't have censorship. They want censorship. Well, ECOWAS prepares to lift sanctions against Niger just before Ramadan. Why? It's still run by an illegitimate government that overthrew an elected government. Sub-regional organization will shortly lift economic sanctions imposed after the coup led by General Abdurrahman Tiani on the 26th of July last year. The shock decision, considered dangerous by some and ill-considered by others, has shaken up the West African Economic Body. To break the deadlock, the heads of state of the organization decided to take the first step towards this. According to several West African ministries, ECOWAS is preparing to lift heavy economic sanctions imposed on Niger in the wake of the coup. Niger is the only country still subject to such measures. Well, that is not going to restore democracy or get to the release of legitimate President Mohamed Bazoum to office in Niger. It will allow the coup artists to continue their garbage. Nigerians protesting over their skyrocketing inflation as the local currency, the Naira, hits a record low value. The Naira plummeted to 1,524 to the dollar. Nigerians are facing one of West African nation's worst economic crises in years, triggered by surging inflation, the result of monetary policies that pushed the currency to an all-time low against the dollar. The latest government statistics released on Thursday showed the inflation rate for January at 29.9%, its highest since 1996. My family is living one day at a time and trusting God, said trader Idris Ahmed, whose sales at a clothing store in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, have declined from an average of $46 a day to just $16 a day. Things are going from bad to worse in Nigeria and West Africa. Speaking of going from bad to worse, let's look at North Africa and Tunisia, where the opposition to the corrupt, illegitimate coup plotter, Kais Saied, the man who overthrew his government by dismissing parliament, opposition figure 82, is going on a hunger strike. Rached Ghannouchi has been in prison since April of last year. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison on charge of receiving illegal foreign funding for his organization. His party says the hunger strike is to support all political opponents in the different prisons in Tunisia. Who puts an 82-year-old man in prison? Who? Well, certainly not South Africa. Jacob Zuma should be in prison. And certainly not America. At least the federal government, because Joe Biden ought to be in prison. We won't win this war. What war are we talking about? We're talking about Barack Hussein Obama's war in Somalia, which he reignited. Barack Obama reignited the war in Somalia. The war never ended, but America wasn't a participant. But Barack Obama drug us into this, and it's cost us billions of dollars. Billions of dollars it's cost us, and the lives of many people by getting America involved in a hopeless case. Somalia will never be solved unless Somalis do it themselves. They cannot be trusted because they cannot get along. And we should not be pouring our national treasure. I know this because I'm one of the people actually deeply involved in what happened here, despite my anger about it. They were lawful orders, and I followed them, despite the fact they were stupid orders. And so now here we are with Biden also. After Trump took us out of Somalia again, now Biden has stuck us back in there. We won't win this war. U.S. faces few good options in the Somali mission. Under radar clash with al-Shabaab drags on for Biden. To fully understand the slate of bad options facing the U.S. and Somalia, consider this. The national security analysts say that Somali government troops are several degrees of magnitude worse than the hapless Afghan army that surrendered to the Taliban in a matter of weeks in 2021 after the Biden administration announced U.S. combat troop withdrawal. That grim reality has left President Biden with little choice but to escalate the war against Somalia's al-Shabaab network that his predecessor Trump tried to end during the final days of his term. The Pentagon carried out more airstrikes against al-Shabaab last year than any year so far in Biden's presidency and could be on track to break that mark again this year. But it's not making a difference. The Somalis must change. They must end the war, not America. Stupidity of our politicians in our foreign policy is epic. Egypt. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the inevitable has happened. The Houthi attacks are crippling Egypt's cash flow. Yep, Suez Canal revenue has been cut in half. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said Monday that revenue from the Suez Canal had decreased by 45% this year alone due to attacks on shipping by the rebel terrorist Houthis in Yemen. It's one of the main sources of foreign currency for Egypt, and now they're facing a major economic crisis because of this stupidity. Well, South Africa says that Palestinians are enduring a more extreme form of apartheid. That's right. Yeah, a more extreme form of apartheid. The country is one of more than 50 scheduled to argue today. And I heard some of the arguments today from, for instance, a Saudi minister, which was comical. I mean, listen, ladies and gentlemen, Saudi Arabia taking a moral position on the treatment of others is a farce. The country is one of more than 50 scheduled to argue before the UN's highest judicial body over Israel's occupation, settlement, annexation of Palestinian territories. South Africa said Tuesday Israel's policies toward Palestinians were a more extreme form of apartheid, invoking its charged history of racial discrimination to add to global pressure. South Africa's ambassador to the Netherlands, Vusi Madonsela, addressed the judges on Tuesday morning, weeks after his country argued that Israel was committing genocide. He recalled South Africa's painful experience of decades of apartheid and discrimination, drew parallels with what he called Israel's colonization of Palestinian territories it seized in 1967. No. It won in 1967 in a conflict. Didn't seize them. Stop lying. Well, the United States appears to be turning its back on Israel. Or is it simply the Biden regime caught in a conundrum? What do we do? We're going to lose all the Arabs in Dearborn. They won't vote for us. Oh, we're going to lose all our leftist hate wankers in New York who won't vote for us because they're all anti-Semitic and they hate Jews because we're not stopping the war in Palestine. So the Biden regime is between a rock and a hard place. There are no good policy decisions for the Biden regime. None. None whatsoever, folks. And so now they're proposing a temporary ceasefire. But this is a consequence of Argentina calling for an immediate ceasefire. The United States has proposed a United Nations Security Council draft resolution on Gaza calling for a temporary ceasefire in Israel's war against Hamas. It is not Israel's war against Hamas. Stop saying that, CNN. That is a lie. Israel did not start a war. On October 6th, Israel is at peace. Hamas launched a war on October 7th. A war of terror, of brutalization, of inhumane, disgusting, vile treatment of other human beings, Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and Palestinians. Hamas, it is Hamas's war, not Israel's war in Gaza. Stop lying. I'm so sick of this nonsense. You fraudulent media. This is not Israel's war in Hamas. That is a politically charged lie of a statement. It is an inaccurate description. This is Israel's response to the terroristic attack by Hamas, a war launched by Hamas. The U.S. draft comes after it vowed to veto an Algerian draft proposal calling for immediate ceasefire. The council will vote on the Algerian draft Tuesday morning. I did say Argentinian. I correct myself. I meant to say Algerian. Algerian draft. That makes more sense in Argentina. Well, the year of the dragon. Well, more like the year of dragon. The Chinese economy is dragging its bum behind it. It's in trouble, folks. Analysts say Beijing needs to roll out measures to stimulate greater domestic consumption amid slowing growth. China last year narrowly beat its economic growth target of 5%, one of its lowest benchmarks in 3 decades. Looking ahead, analysts expect the economy to face stiff headwinds in the year of the dragon. Against a backdrop of crisis-stricken property market, subdued export earnings, and crackdowns on private industry, international investors are pulling out of Chinese stocks at record rates. For those of you just tuning in now, listening to hear why the ANC is terrified of Umkhonto we Sizwe, I've covered that early in the broadcast, and I will return to that topic after I get through the news headlines. So hang tight, don't run off. Taiwan threatening cruise ships. China threatening cruise ships near Taiwan. Taiwan minister says China Coast Guard triggers panic by boarding a Taiwan tourist boat. China announced on Sunday that its Coast Guard would begin regular patrols and set up law enforcement activity around the Taiwan-controlled islands of Kinmen, following the death of 2 Chinese nationals fleeing Taiwan's Coast Guard, having entered into waters too close to Kinmen. 6 Chinese Coast Guard officers on Monday boarded a Taiwanese tourist boat carrying 11 crew members and 23 passengers to check its route plan, certificate, and crew licenses, leaving around half an hour later. We think it has harmed our people's feelings and triggered people's panic. That is also not in line with the interest of people across the strait. Quan Biling, head of Taiwan's Ocean Affairs Council, told reporters outside of Parliament today in Taipei. Ooh, things are getting hot over there. Well, because things are getting hot in Asia, Australia is doubling the size of its tiny naval fleet. Heavily armored, optionally crewed ships to enter service under massive reshaping Australia's naval fleet. 6 large and optimally crewed naval vessels, that means automated, almost no people, heavily armed with missiles, will be added to Australia's surface fleet under a dramatic $11 billion Australian dollar reshaping of the Navy that will see the acquisition of 11 new general-purpose frigates to be partly built overseas. Wow. Australia is ramping up its military, its Navy. Wow. Australia's oldest currently serving warship, the HMAS Anzac, will be immediately retired ahead of the gradual replacement of the aging Anzac-class fleet with new frigates, which will be first built in either Germany, Korea, Japan, or Spain, not in Australia. Shame, shame, shame. Well, more Japanese and Poles want the return of nuclear power after the idiotic decision to shut down the Fukushima the power plant. Now they want it back. A new poll shows that half of Japanese favor restarting dozens of reactors in the country, compared with just 30% who said so in previous surveys. Japanese have finally realized that nuclear power is a better answer to the climate crises. Japan prepares to mark the 13th anniversary of the March 2011 disaster of the Fukushima nuclear power plant. A new poll indicates that opposition to the full resumption of operations is weakening. The opinion poll conducted on 17 and 18 February, published in the Asahi newspaper, shows that 50% of Japanese are now in favor of restarting dozens of reactors around the country that have been shut down since March 11th earthquake and tsunami triggered the world's second worst nuclear disaster after the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. Well, there you go. Well, they should have nuclear power. That's what should be going on. SpaceX is taking satellites out of orbit. They are decrepit already. The removal of so many satellites at once is unprecedented, highlighting the challenges of huge satellite constellations. An unspecified defect in early model Starlink satellites has prompted SpaceX to preemptively deorbit the units before they potentially fail and become hazards in low Earth orbit. While the company remains confident that the deorbiting of these problematic units will prevent any issues, this incident underscores the challenges and uncertainties in navigating the realm of gigantic satellite networks. The deorbiting of Starlink satellites is a commonplace task for SpaceX. They've already initiated the disposal of 406 units from the nearly 6,000 satellites that they've launched to date. 17 are currently non-maneuverable and are expected to naturally decay and burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Well, SpaceX is decommissioning its satellites for its Starlink. Barclays in trouble, restructuring the Barclays Bank. The shares jumped 7% after announcing a major restructure, but that does not tell you the health of the corporation. Barclays today reported a fourth quarter net loss of £111 million. On Tuesday, the bank announced a huge operational restructuring, including substantial cost cuts, asset sales, and reorganization of its business divisions. It promised to return £10 billion to shareholders between 2024 and 2026 through dividends and share buybacks. Wow. So, for the full year, net attributable profit came to 4.27 and below a consensus forecast of 4.59. After the fourth quarter loss, it was profitable for the year. Barclays in trouble. Germany issues ominous warnings. Ooh. German ministers issuing ominous warnings. That's right, folks. Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, no, that's not Oscar Pistorius, Boris Pistorius, has called for NATO to prepare for the worst case scenario as he issued a warning that the alliance could be attacked within the next decade. Pistorius raised the specter of the alliance being threatened at the Munich Security Conference. He told NATO delegates commitment to spend at least 2% defense was only a starting point. Pistorius also said the failure by U.S. Congress to approve military aid for Ukraine could hurt security cooperation, harm U.S. defense contractors, and weaken Europe. President Joe Biden has blamed the fall of the Donetsk city of Avdiivka on Saturday to the stalled $60 billion aid package to Kiev. So let me get this straight. Boris Pistorius, is telling us that the failure of U.S. Congress to fund Joe Biden's proxy war in Ukraine is jeopardizing European security. Well, it's not our job to secure Europe unless you're a member of NATO. If you're not a member of NATO, futzek, piss off. We're not responsible for your defense. If you join NATO, then we have a collective responsibility under Article 5. Otherwise, be quiet. So why is it that the U.S., which spends 3.6% of its GDP on national defense, much of which is squandered in Europe to defend these Europeans, why is it that we're responsible for the failing collective security of Europe? Why aren't the Germans paying their fair share? Why aren't the Brits paying their fair share? Why aren't all of the traditional members of NATO paying their fair share of their GDP? Why do we have to pay 3.6% of our national treasure when Germany, until 2 years ago, was paying 0.9%? They're freeloaders. And this guy's a scumbag who's falsely telling people that the reason that Ukraine is in trouble is because the U.S. No, the reason the Ukraine is in trouble is because the feckless European Union. And of course, Victoria Nuland and the State Department undermining Ukraine's government in 2014. Well, this is the state of things. And this is why the Russians are just so brain dead when it comes to this campaign. They're using T-55s. T-55s. 70-year-old tanks. The Russians got cocky after Avdiivka and sent 70-year-old T-55 tanks to attack Robotyne. It ended badly. Now, the problem I have with this is Forbes. This is a business magazine. This is one of the most famous business magazines in the world. And they have this guy, David Axe, on their staff, who's writing like a 12-year-old. Listen to this. Avdiivka, with its once thriving heavy industry and pre-war population of 30,000, is the first significant Ukrainian city to fall to the Russians in nearly a year. And it's no secret why Russian-aligned Republicans in the U.S. Congress began blocking further U.S. aid to Ukraine starting in October. What? There are enough Democrats to get this bill passed. Russian-aligned. What a scumbag piece of crap this David Axe is. And he actually gets paid to be on Forbes. Forbes was once a prestigious publication in the business world. No longer. Just like Barron's once was, and just like the Wall Street Journal was. All of which have been captured and are no longer objective news sources. Yep. Not every Ukrainian brigade is tired, outnumbered, and ammo-starved as the 1/10, which was in Avdiivka. Ukrainian forces not only held the line this week, and they inflicted heavy casualties on the overconfident Russian brigades and regiments, including at least one unit that tried to assault Ukrainian positions in the south in an unupgraded 70-year-old T-55 tanks. 70-year-old T-55 tanks. The Russians are just emptying their inventory. They're getting rid of the old inventory while they build new T-90s. T-55s and MTLBs, engineering vehicles. These are things built in the 1950s and 60s. Wow. That's what's out there. Well, the Russian state is quite frightened, apparently, as they've arrested a ballerina. A ballerina is such a threat to Russia. Ooh, folks. Putin's feared security service detains California ballerina over $50 donation to Ukraine. Russia's main security agency, the FSB, arrested a dual citizen of the U.S. and Russia. There's no such thing as dual citizenship. Sit on one side of the fence or the other, young lady. You're either Russian or you're American. You're not both. Alleging she committed high treason for donating funds to an appeal. Well, one can make the argument that being a dual national is high treason. You can't own fealty to two different countries. The FSB said in a statement that she had raised money for a Ukrainian organization that bought weapons and other equipment for Ukraine's military. The Russian news outlet Mediazona identified her as Ksenia Karolina, 33 years old and a resident of Los Angeles. So there you go. She went to Russia to visit her family, and now she's going to spend 20 years in prison for her stupidity. Well, I guess in the modern world, when you can just put money into GoFundMe and into all these other things, Doesn't work out so well. Back a buddy. Argentina's poverty level hits 57% of the population living in poverty in the failed socialist paradise of Argentina. Milei's got a big job ahead of him. Studies found 57% of Argentina's people are considered poor, the worst level in 20 years. Of course, they'll blame this on Javier Milei, who just took over, and he has nothing to do with it. The findings quickly unleashed accusations between Argentina's former vice president, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, and the government of President Javier Milei, who came to power announcing a series of shock measures aimed at tackling the country's severe crisis. 27 million people in Argentina are poor, and 15% of those are mired in destitution. Not looking good for Argentina, folks. Not looking good. The widow of the late Haitian president has been arrested for his murder. The widow of late Haitian President Jovenel Moise, indicted in his 2021 assassination. He was assassinated in his home in 2021. He was among more than 50 people indicted by the Haitian judge in connection to the murder of his wife. Martine Moise, who was shot and wounded in the July home invasion, was named in a 122-page report issued by Judge Walter Vessa-Voltaire and is accused of complicity in criminal association. Haiti's former Secretary General of the National Police, Léonard Valbonne, reportedly told officials that Martine Moise laid out plans to succeed her husband just 2 days after his assassination. Valbonne said Martine Moise called and allegedly said, Jovenel didn't do anything for us. You have to open the office. The president told, we will hold elections 3 months so I can become president. Now we will have power. Ooh. The former First Lady had numerous inconsistencies in her account of what happened the night her husband, who was 53, was killed, including that she hid under her bed when the intruders entered. But investigators at the scene claimed not even a giant rat, whose size measures 35 by 45 centimeters, will be able to squeeze under the bed. Oh, my goodness. But they have no direct evidence of her involvement in the plot, so who knows if she'll be convicted. But wow, not even a giant rat can get under the bed. All right, it's 12 o'clock, and I've hit 7 kilowatt hours on my panels, so we'll see how it goes the rest of the day. Wow, folks. Capital One, major bank, major credit card issuer here in the United States, has bought one of the major credit card brands. Of course, people are familiar with Visa, with MasterCard, with American Express, but most people outside the United States are unfamiliar with the Discover brand. Started by Sears Corporation, Discover was an alternative credit card company that issued credit cards, just like Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Now, the Discover brand is being snatched up by Capital One in a massive acquisition, which will further limit choice by consumers, likely to raise usury interest rates on credit cards even higher, astronomical nosebleed levels. Capital One to buy Discover for $35 billion, a deal that combines major U.S. credit card companies. Capital One Financial is buying Discover Financial Services for $35 billion, a deal that would bring together two of the nation's biggest lenders and credit card issuers. Under the terms of the all-stock transaction, Discover Financial shareholders receive Capital One shares valued at $140. That's a big premium over the $110 that Discover shares traded for on Friday. The deal marries two of the largest credit card companies that aren't banks first, like JP Morgan Chase and Citigroup, which are banks before they're actually credit card issuers. The notable exception, American Express. It also brings together two companies whose customers are largely similar, often Americans who are looking for cash back or modest travel rewards compared to premium credit cards dominated by American Express and Citi and Chase. So, there you go. Americans held $1.13 trillion in debt on their credit cards. The aggregate household debt balances increased by $212 billion in 2023, up 1.2%. But interest rates roughly run about 21.5% on these cards. And that makes these banks very wealthy. What the heck? Washington Times did it again. Border chaos. They changed the picture and they changed the title of the story. I don't like this dishonest. The Washington Times conservative outlet doing this. I refreshed the page here. Or I didn't refresh it. Refreshed. Safety nets for migrants repel Biden's black voters' support for border wall hits record high. The politics of immigration have shifted as chaos at the border persists, according to a pollster. It says black men are being drawn to Donald Trump because Joe Biden is a failure. This is bad news for the Democrats. A Pew study shows 45% of Americans see the border as a crisis, and a further 32% call it a major problem. That is 77% of Americans are angry about the border. The flood of migrants into sanctuary cities is causing pain in housing and jobs and services for black Americans, and they've had enough. They're turning against Joe Biden and his leftists. Well, the White House is distributing $5.8 billion of our money for infrastructure, for water projects. Wow. The Biden regime announced Today, it's distributing another $5.8 billion of non-existent money for water infrastructure projects around the country, paid for by one of the key legislative victories. Yep. So who is the federal government to do water infrastructure? That's not in the Constitution. That is not the role of the federal government. Well, New York has really screwed the pooch here, ladies and gentlemen. The New York State judge who made this ridiculous judgment against Donald Trump. First, he should be disbarred. The man said that Trump was guilty before he even held a trial. He was clearly not objective, should have recused himself. He didn't do it. Stayed in the trial, was insulting to the former president, would not allow him to testify, violated the rules of evidence, violated the court procedures. This man should be disbarred, quite frankly. And this ridiculous $60 million judgment against Trump. Who was harmed? A judgment is to repair the damage and harm done to someone. There was no one harmed. Well, Shark Tank star Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, is never going to do business in New York again, and he's not alone. Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary vows to never invest in loser state New York after the Trump verdict. If Donald Trump can't do business in New York, then Kevin O'Leary won't either. In an interview Monday, the Shark Tank investor blasted last week's $255 million verdict against the former president as a threat to all businesses that turns New York into a loser state. This award, I mean, just leaving the whole Trump thing out of it and seeing what occurred here, and I'm no different than any other investor, I'm shocked at this. I can't even understand or fathom the decision at all. There's no rationale for it. Yep. Mr. O'Leary said existing businesses and new ventures will now head for different states. It was already on top of the list of being a loser state. I would never invest in New York now, and I'm not the only person saying that. Fox anchorman Neil Cavuto asked O'Leary about assurances from New York Governor Kathy Hochul that Mr. Trump is a uniquely dishonest person and others have nothing to worry about. He was not reassured. I'm sorry, her words fall on deaf ears to everybody. Yep. Every investor's worried because where's the victim? Who lost the money? This is some arbitrary decision a judge made. What does this say about the bar? What about the legal bar in New York? Aren't they going to question this judge? Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Wonderful. Exactly my comment from the moment this ludicrous case took place. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, an ancient lake around Death Valley is back. The hubris of humans thinking that we are changing the planet. An ancient lake that reemerged in Death Valley National Park last year is going to be around for a bit longer. Death Valley's famed Badwater Basin began filling up with water in August due to heavy precipitation from Hurricane Hillary. Yep. And now it's getting more rain. Park Rangers initially estimated the water filling up several inches of the basin where the Ice Age Lake Manu once stood would only last until February. But the satellite images show the one on the right. The lake is lasting longer. At its peak, Lake Manly once held up to 700 feet of water, this Ice Age lake. Currently about 6 miles long, 3 miles wide, and 1 foot deep, the temporary lake is deep enough to kayak in. A rare opportunity. Well, the hubris of humans thinking that we control nature. Joyless Reed, who doesn't descend from American slaves, still rails about slavery. The clueless one to herself. Father from the DRC, mother from Guyana in South America. PMSNBC, LSNBC, host Joy Reid spewed her continued hatred of America in a recent interview in which she declared that blacks literally physically built this country. During an interview on Salon Talks with writer Dean Obadiah, the host of the Readout also contended that former President Barack Obama and his stint in the White House serve as the only reparations black Americans will ever get. She said there's a view that there are two Americas. This evil race hustler. The Capitals showcased their new Black History Month jerseys. That's right, folks. Black History Month jerseys. Sure. So here you go. The Capitals showcased new Black History Month jerseys celebrating the 11 black players who played for the Washington Capitals in their history. And in further news, all NBA teams will be hosting their whites commemorations jerseys going forward for March. After Black History Month, we're going to have a White History Month in which we showcase the very small number of white players who play in the NBA. Most of whom are from Europe. So we're going to have white jerseys. The Washington Redskins also announced that they would be wearing white jerseys exclusively to honor the handful of white players who have the courage to play in a nearly all-black league. Well, retailers are under siege as lawlessness prevails in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Boston, all of these leftist paradises where they fail to prosecute, Philadelphia, where they fail to prosecute criminals. So, retailers are leaving in droves. Businesses have cited the rise of online shopping and declining in-store profits for pulling out of urban centers, but insiders see a real problem. Unarmed security staff's inability to keep employees and merchandise safe is driving away workers and shoppers in big cities with soft on-crime policies. Last week, armed thieves stabbed a loss prevention officer who attempted to stop them from looting a Safeway market in Kensington, Maryland. In December, a thief fatally stabbed a Macy's security guard in Philadelphia. In April, a Home Depot security guard in Pleasanton, California was gunned down after he caught a woman stealing. Walmart and Target each eclipsed $500 million in retail theft losses last year, so the retail giant's store closures in cities where theft has gotten out of control are no surprise. Target closed 9 stores in New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland over safety concerns. And of course, what do we hear? What do we hear? Racism! Racism! Oh, these retailers have an obligation to stay in poor black neighborhoods. No, they don't. Law enforcement and prosecutors have an obligation to provide safety and prosecute criminals. Then you won't have to leave these neighborhoods. That's what needs to happen. All right, folks, let's get back to the lead story here from the top of the hour. I think some people tuned in exclusively for that, so let's get back to that. The African National Congress is absolutely bat-crap terrified about the Umkhonto we Sizwe party. This party apparently did not do a legitimate or legal registration, and that is driving some people crazy. Sorry, I got a bogus thing here. Yep. So they are saying the party did not register properly. The MK party is said to have erred when it failed to submit a fresh application and submitted a supplemented application that the IEC had already rejected. In court papers filed in January, the ANC's attorneys wrote that there was no lawful process to supplement an application for registration in the IEC. Having taken this decision to reject the application on August 4th, 2023, the ANC maintains the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer became functus officio in relation to his application lodged by Umkhonto Sizwe. He could not have simply picked up from where he left off and resumed reconsideration of the application as if he never took the decision to reject the application. Well, so the ANC desperate to end the threat. Ladies and gentlemen, the ANC is hemorrhaging votes in KwaZulu-Natal, and after 2 by-elections, they know it. 21% in the first by-election, 28% in the second by-election makes MK a factor in KwaZulu-Natal. And why? Simply because Jacob Zuma is with the party. That's the only reason. Debbie just got here, got a YouTube posting. Well, I posted in Ronaldo's group this broadcast, and I always broadcast at 6 p.m. every day. All right, where was I at? Let me go back to where I was at here in the chat. Fun Rest, already saw that. Marilyn Brokenshaw's here. Matthew Dixon, okay. Records do not exist. Oh, yeah. Iran and Cuba. I don't think Cuba gave money. Cuba has no money. Iran has money. They have money because Europeans are paying a fortune for oil because of Joe Biden's war on energy driving up the price of petroleum. Okay. Big Daddy Libby's back live in 30. Oh, did you chase people away? I didn't know Big Daddy Libby's back. Neisner is going to lose money from tourists no longer coming due to Carte Blanche's video, which was on the terrible municipality government. Well, that's bad. Isn't Neisner led by the DA? Botswana may be the problem. No, that's not true, Vilma. That is not true. Botswana is foot-and-mouth disease free. The disease is coming from Zimbabwe and from Namibia. And Botswana authorities go to great efforts to prevent that from getting there. No, they're not the source. No, they're not the source. It's coming from Zimbabwe and from Namibia. In fact, when I lived in Botswana, the BDF and the BPS, Botswana Police Service, whenever people rustled cattle from Zimbabwe, they came over and stole cattle from Botswana. If they got to the border, Botswana authorities would reimburse the owners of the cattle. They would not even try to get them back. They would block them from coming back. Yeah, ETOL's still sending bills. Exactly, Maryland. Still sending bills. ANC wants BE to apply for cattle ship. Maybe. James Bowie's here. Welcome to you. Most important issue in this country the ANC can focus on. Yep, exactly. And then the DA and Freedom Front care more about Israel than South Africa. I haven't heard a single comment from the Freedom Front Plus about Israel. I haven't seen a single comment about it. So what do you mean? What is the Freedom Front Plus said or done about Israel? Yeah, 8 million jobless. They hire Zuma to count more like 4 times. Exactly. Streaming is the future. No, it's not, scientist. It's not. It's not. It's not. If you don't have the bandwidth, if you don't have the infrastructure, streaming is useless. And when you charge for data, streaming is useless. No one's going to pay that. In addition to that, these streaming services are corrupt. You get all this content, and then they create 85 different streaming services. You have to sign up for all of them. You wind up paying 3 times as much for the same content, which disappears. The IT crowd was on Netflix for a long time. I love the IT crowd. I have the DVDs. I could go to the basement, dig them out, stick them in the machine, but I just watch it on my streaming Roku device. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, gone February 1st. Or November, whatever it was. Just gone. No more IT crowd. Been there for years. They lost the licensing, so they got rid of it because they don't own the content. And then, much to my surprise, it showed up on Amazon Prime, so I can watch it there. But no, streaming is not the future. Streaming is a method to watch content. It's not the future. People have been saying that for 30 years. George Steinberg is here. Welcome. No TV. Okay, cool beans. Why did USA not withdraw from Somalia like they did in Afghanistan? We did withdraw, scientists. We did withdraw. We weren't there. Barack Hussein Obama put American military into Somalia without consulting Congress. And then Trump removed those forces before he left office, and Biden put us back in with a cap of 500. Jacques Van Heerden says, good day. Welcome to you, Jacques. Grasshopper is back. Carlos Mango. Masses will vote ANC to power, will not care. Oh, by the way, Jacques Vint, thank you for the super chat on the live stream off my mobile, which I didn't see until after the fact. Gary Wild is here. Welcome to you. Why did X suspend Yulia Navalny? I have no idea. They did suspend her account. I have no idea why. Time eludes me. Probably should have taken advantage of modern technology and set a reminder, but then they said it was airport last night. Saw Andre and Ina before they went back to China. Okay. I didn't know they were in China. 7.9 meter green anaconda film. No, I didn't hear about that, Garrett, but I did hear about a snake found under somebody's bed in South Africa. Cape will be our Israeli. What does that mean? Do MK want to participate? Yes, Joe, they are. They're participating in national elections. That's what this whole thing is about. The ANC is trying to have their registration disqualified or removed as invalid so they can't participate in elections. That's exactly what they want, to participate in the elections. That's exactly what they want. Yep. That is the plan. That's what they want. So how are we doing over here? Okay. 116 people currently here. Hey, thanks for everybody that's being here. Be sure to hit the like button. We've had 500 people tune in, but only 105 likes. You're going to make me cry. You're going to make me cry. Shy of a full-on invasion, I would have went to Leavenworth before becoming a sitting duck in Somalia. Well, I nearly went to Somalia. Yep. In 1992, we sent Black Hawk helicopters from the 4th Brigade, 1st Armor Division. I was the S2, the intelligence officer for that brigade. We sent them to Somalia to be part of the 12th Aviation Brigade. There was the 11th and 12th Aviation Brigade, which had attack helicopters, lift helicopters, and reconnaissance helicopters supporting the 7th and the 5th Corps. Well, the 7th Corps went away. The 5th Corps stayed in Germany. The 7th Corps was deactivated. But we still had 11th and 12th Aviation Brigades, which eventually merged and melded. But in the meantime, in 1992, the 12th Aviation Brigade sent assets, including lift helicopters, from our brigade in Hanau down to Somalia. They wound up in Kismayu. Now, what happened on that operation, very interesting story. I haven't told this in a very long time, so if you're interested, hang around for a second to hear this story. So I was actually the assistant S2 at the time, not the primary. I later became the primary. And the guy who I worked for, Matt Anderson, is a friend. He's works for someone else now as a civilian. But Matt and I were there. We were told on Friday, around noontime, we got a warning order saying that we were deploying to Somalia on Sunday or Monday, something like that. And then we found out later that night or on Saturday that, in fact, that's not the case, that we would be deploying a week later. And it turned out it wasn't going to be the whole brigade. It was just going to be, a platoon of helicopters from one of our companies in the 2nd Battalion, 227th Aviation Regiment. So what happened was they needed a threat briefing. So Matt Anderson and I put together a threat briefing. So we brought the flight surgeon in to talk about the health threats like malaria, hepatitis, and things like that, and cholera that were a concern in Somalia. We brought in... Matt talked about geopolitical stuff, and we briefed all the pilots and all the crews, and we briefed everybody who might possibly go. So it was about 300 people we briefed on this, if I recall correctly. And then I briefed the threat from weapons. Now, I want to talk about press. You want to talk about intelligence analysts that knows their salt? Yes, I'm boasting now. I've got a big ego, so I'm boasting. But I'm telling you, this is exactly what I did. And I don't have it now, but I did have it for a long time because it was unclassified. I gave the threat briefing about what the threat to the pilots would be going down there for this peacekeeping mission in Somalia. And what I told them is Pilots asked me, they said, well, what about the 2S6 or something like that? They had, or SA2s, the SA2s. I said, guys, the SA2 is a missile to fire at aircraft, high altitude, high performance, hypersonic jets. They don't fire a missile the size of a bus, a minivan, at a helicopter. Besides, these things have been in degraded condition. We don't know what state they're in. We don't even know if they're operational, if the batteries work on them, if they can even fire them, if the propellant works, or even if there's any qualified operators. So your biggest threat will be from three sources in Somalia. Your helicopters will be in the gravest danger from three things. Number one, small arms fire. Small arms fire. Helicopter is made of aluminum, and it has thousands of parts, and you can take them out by hitting one or damaging the rotor or the tail rotor so it spins around. So, or killing the pilots by shooting through the windscreen. So small arms, number one. Number two, SA-7s. We have no idea in 1992 how many SA-7s are in Somalia. Probably thousands. And those are encased and they last a long time, so we don't know how many of them are operational. An SA-7 can fire a helicopter and take it out. And I said the third thing you need to be worried about in Somalia, the third thing are RPGs. And one of the pilots said, Lieutenant Wyatt, RPGs, those are for taking out vehicles. I said, yeah, but picture yourself in a helicopter hovering over an airbase or hovering over a beach or hovering over an urban center doing a medical evacuation or dropping supplies or putting troops in or picking people up. You are a big fat blob of a target for people in an urban environment, and they can shoot you with small arms, SA-7s, and or RPGs. Ladies and gentlemen, what took down Durant's helicopter? What took down Durant's helicopter in Black Hawk Down? RPGs. Thousands of them were fired. Rocket propelled grenades were fired, thousands of them at the helicopters. And they took down the Walcott's helicopter. They took down Durant's helicopter in Black Hawk Down. Now, I made that prediction as a lieutenant with no training in Somalia, with no experience as a helicopter pilot, because I was an intelligence analyst and I took my craft seriously. Those pilots went to Somalia. They went to Kismayo. They spent 6 months there. When they came back, the platoon leader from that platoon came straight to my office, knocked on my door, walked in, and shook my hand. And I said, hey, welcome back. Good to see you again. So what's the handshake for? He said, because you saved our lives. I said, what do you mean? Well, we knew what the threat was. Other pilots didn't know because they got no briefing. We were never briefed by the 12th Aviation Brigade, either in Germany before we went to Somalia or at any time we were in Somalia. The entire time there, we never got intelligence briefing. But we remembered what you told us in the threat briefing right here in the theater at Fliegerhorst Kaserne. That's what they told me. And I haven't told that story in probably 20 years. Actually, I'm kind of beaming with a little bit of pride. But I was supposed to go to Somalia, and at the last minute, didn't go, which was fine with me. Yeah, I bought Black Hawk Down. It's hard for me to watch. Yeah, Roy, that's a really well-done movie. Really well-done movie. Our Black Hawk took fire and almost crashed in Panama. Sergeant Mifiski, to my right, had his heel and his boot shot off. Sorry to hear that, Roy. So is that 1989 talking about? Yep, RPG. Yep. So, look, you guys can say what you want about me, but that's another thing I did on active duty as a military officer, as an intelligence officer, helping save lives. Yep, that's that was one of the proudest moments I had of me doing my job and showing that it actually had an actual impact, is when they came back and told me that. Yep. So much knowledge, your stories are meaningful. Thank you, Shawnee. But I get attacked as a white supremacist and a fat shamer. Yeah, please. These people are just idiots. In China, the national level CCP hates foreigners while the local and state governments are begging for the investment. Foreign investors are turned off from buying. Well, that's a fair statement, Majakwa. Fair statement. That's a fair statement. Yeah, so you were down there. We're going after Noriega. Has Noriega died in prison now? I haven't heard anything on Manuel Noriega in a long time. He must be like 80-something if he's still in prison. Yep, Manuel Noriega. Boy, that was something else, that Operation 1989. I don't forget, we took troops from Fort Ord and from all over the country participating in that. Fort Campbell. Wow. Small arms, SA-7s, and RPGs. Yep. Rocket propelled grenades. It's the rugby fat shaming. Is that it? You're allowed to feel proud to have some satisfaction. Thank you, Fleshin. Yeah, thank you for that. No, but I never really talk about those things. Never really talk about that. No, never really talk about it. So it's just interesting to do it. It's been a long time since I even thought about that story. Man, that's so cool. I'm almost at 10 hours now. That's a good sign. I've got 4.5 hours minimum of light. At 5, that would be 20 more. Wait, 5. That'd be 25 more, 34. I might get close to yesterday's production. Where's your Trump shoes? I don't spend $400 on trainers, on sneakers, on gym shoes. I do not spend $400. I do not like to spend over $100 for tennis shoes. Unfortunately, I have to, because I don't buy those crappy slave-made Nikes that are bad for your feet. I buy the only good running shoe out there that I like, and that's Asics. So Asics, unfortunately, I can almost never find them at a good price. So when I do find them for under $150, preferably under $100, I buy a few pair at a time. Yep. Yeah, but I'm not going to be buying, it's the rugby that gave you the fat shamers. Maybe it is. I don't know. Could be the case. Yeah. But so that's kind of funny, actually. Yeah, creeping up there, 1.63 megawatts produced here. I'm producing more electricity than ESCOM. War is never a good time. That's correct. It's terrible. War is a horrible thing that no one should ever experience. It's a terrible, terrible thing. My mates flew Cobras, assisted in a successful hunt for Pablo Escobar. Yeah, Pablo Escobar, Colombian drug dealer. That guy was incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. No menage a trois. Not going to be wearing those shoes. I am wearing my Fellies, though, from Freedom of Movement. I still need to get around interviewing those guys. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Love to talk to them about their shoes. Also, I'm looking at trying to get a few people back in the program that haven't been on for a while. So we'll see. But by the way, thanks to the 111 people here currently. I do appreciate your patronage of the channel. Thank you for watching. Thanks for the likes, although we could hit a few more likes on there. I like 111. That's a good number. But I want to say that the stream that I did yesterday where the ANC can't find the Keter deployment records, that live stream, which I did off the cuff yesterday, has gotten 6,300 views and 35 new subscribers. So thank you for that. 6,400 views, I should say. 6,400 views. Yep, and that comes on top of the prepared videos I did in this past several days. One on hang on a second. There's 3 of them. The ANC in the financial scandal. That one got, well, that's in January. That's last month. Excuse me. The last few days. Here we go. City Press attack on Steve Hofmeyer. That one got 13,000 views. And the ICJ rejecting South Africa's plea to intervene in Gaza got 15,000 more views. The Julius Malema video that I made where I didn't speak, I just played music and put comments up and analysis. That one just got 1,100 views. So a little disappointing there. How many shorts done anything recently? Yeah, I had a short get 4,000. Over Gaza, and another one over Ronnie Lamola got 4,000. So the shorts are doing a little bit. They're not my favorite thing, but we're inching up there. So thank you for that. Ms. Tukatela's here. The ladies here. Welcome, both of you. Chris and subscribers. What's JI? What does that mean? What does that mean? So, yep. Anyway, these are kind of cool hats. They sell these at the VA hospital. A private vendor does. He's allowed to sell them. So you've got 4 ribbons on here. So these 4 ribbons are the National Defense Service Medal, which is awarded to all military members who serve, regardless of where they serve during a time of war. So I got that because of the war, serving. And then this is the Southwest Asia Service Medal. And this one, for me, has 3 stars on it. Now, the 3 stars represent something. Only about 18,000 American military are authorized to wear 3 stars. Most do it because that's how it was. You find it at the shop. But you can only wear the 3 stars if you participate in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and Desert Calm, which was the aftermath of the conflict. I was in Shield, Storm, and Calm, so I can wear this with 3 stars on it for all 3 campaigns. So they give me 1 ribbon, 3 campaigns, 1 ribbon. So then this one here is the government of Saudi Arabia for the liberation of Kuwait and defense of Saudi Arabia, which is really cool and with a big palm frond on it. And then this one here is the liberation of Kuwait from the government of Kuwait. So those are 4 ribbons and medals for that one war. Additionally, I, like everyone else, got some sort of medal, which that's a Operation Desert Shield or Desert Storm veteran, and on the back it says ODS vet. So, yeah. Anyway, and that was the Army Commendation Medal, which is kind of a joke. I shouldn't have got that. Do you think urban wars we've seen in Gaza will alter the way wars are fought? No, I do not. I do not, Joe. We fought urban wars. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, Stalingrad, Leningrad. We fought urban wars forever. The difference today is the technology that's available, the means to deliver pain, and then the use of drones. That's really changed things quite a bit. Israel's making too many eggs at one time. No, not really, Jonathan. People are ganging up on Israel. Israel didn't launch this war. How can Israel be making enemies? Is Israel supposed to sit there and wait for them to come across and gang rape and execute, murder, slice the breast off, put babies in the oven again? Is that what Israel's supposed to do? Allow Hamas to do that? They left Gaza in 2005 to the Palestinian Authority. The so-called apartheid state is run by the Palestinians, not the Israelis. The one that the ANC calls an apartheid state. Gaza is run by the Palestinian Authority, which is run by Hamas, which has not had an election since 2006 when they stole control of the Palestinian Authority and suspended elections. Israel was not in Gaza. They left almost 20 years ago. So how are they making enemies? They're making enemies by existing. And if people make enemies by existing, then there's something wrong with the people that are their enemies. What are you drinking tonight, Dylan? Cat intruders or cat alphas, like Asics, amateur wrestling family growing up. Asics. I love Asics. Good stuff. Yeah, so how is Israel making enemies? That's what I don't understand. I appreciate people sharing that, but how exactly are they making enemies? It's interesting that people would say that. I don't know how true that is. But yeah, maybe they are. Roy says there's a saying that no matter how high-tech a war gets, a piece of ground is not secure until soldiers stand it with a weapon and not get shot at. Well, that's the bottom line here. You can, that's these clowns who said air power, air power. We have these air marshals, air power, air power. Our power will win the wars. No, it won't. No, it won't. You can bomb the snot out of something, but then someone's got to go occupy the ground. Marines or infantry or army. Yep. Fred is proud to be South African but ashamed of the ANC government. Well, I'm proud to be an American, but I'm ashamed of the Biden regime. There you go. And the Shapiro regime in Washington, in Harrisburg. No, I did not go to Panama. No, only troops in the States went to Panama, and I never served in a combat unit in the United States. My tours in the United States were confined to education, language training, and then working either at the Army War College or in the intelligence community. And so none of those were combat units. So I worked for National Security Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency at the Pentagon, and I also worked at the Army War College. But I never served in a combat unit. My combat units were only overseas. So no, the only units from the States went to Panama. What was that called? Operation, I can't remember the name of it. I can live to hardly leave the room. Exactly. Your thoughts on subterranean warfare and AI robotics. Subterranean warfare. Well, I don't know what you mean by that unless you're talking about using seismic charges to change things. Are you talking about tunnels? Tunnels have been an aspect of warfare for centuries. Centuries. I mean, people used to dig tunnels to get underneath castles. That's why they put moats around them, so you get flooded. You couldn't get solid ground there. Just cause. Thank you, Roy. Just cause. Yep, that was the one. Yep, Matthew wants to vote for Biden. Good luck, Matthew. You're South African. You can't vote in our elections. Subterranean warfare. Is that what you mean, Chevy? And then AI robotics. Ladies and gentlemen, Skynet is here. You should be scared. Even Israel's having even Brazil's having problems with Israel. Okay, well, Brazil is being led by a felon, a convicted felon, a thief, a communist. So I don't really have much to say about what Brazil has to say about any other country. Used to joke about it. People would ask why we win, and we would just say, just cause. That's good. That's good. Just cause. Matthew Dixon's membership. Matthew wastes his tweet claiming we endorse the Biden regime. That's funny. Mike is here. You are very tardy, my friend. We're an hour and a half into this. So, even Brazil is having trouble. Yeah, that's true. When is the next James Bond movie coming out? I don't know. They're going to have a black or a female James Bond. They already replaced M with a woman. That happened a long time ago. 2024 is a major worldwide election year. We will see some sparks at already seeing cheap politics. Oh, yeah, I've already seen it at the local level. Yep. What's your take on Argentina's new president? Well, I don't know. It's early days. He's correct that Argentina needs austerity. He's correct that Argentina's been spending money it doesn't have, and the government needs to rein that in. Judi Dench. Yes, Arctic, she was. She was better than the original M. I wasn't denigrating or complaining about. I'm just saying that this is the changes. They already had a female M. I liked was it John Cleese who played Q? That was pretty good too. Tom Hardy is that might work. What causes crime? How do you combat crime? That's a good question, Michael Holmes, and that's a good topic to talk about right now. Let's do that while I have 100 viewers here right now. What causes crime? Well, moral decay. Moral decay. Leftists will tell you that crime is the consequence of poverty. That's nonsense. I lived in abject poverty. No water, no electricity, fetching water from a cistern. I never stole. Moral ambiguity. That's what causes crime. And then no deterrence. Exacerbates it and encourages it. When you have no deterrent or no penalty for committing crime and for harming people, it's human nature to take advantage of others. That's why governments must exist. That's why polities form governments to represent our common mutual interest. There's a need for police and for military. You have a military to prevent bullies from threatening your sovereignty and protecting your country. You have police to deal with miscreants and malcontents who abuse others who are vulnerable. What causes crime? Moral decay and a lack of deterrence. Simple as that. Simple as that. Michael says cultural breakdown. Well, you have to have a culture to begin with. I mean, there was a time when there was no culture, of moral responsibility, and, you'd club the next caveman and take his wife and rape her and produce offspring, eat their food. Crime of politicians. Yeah. So every time that a politician tells me that, and a leftist tells me that crime is a consequence of poverty, if that were the case, the entire planet would be in conflict right now. Most people in India, in China, in Russia, in Latin America, in Africa live in poverty. They would all be burning down every government in the world right now. Every single one. I know the world's in flames, but it's not what it could be. We can have an apocalypse. Poverty does not cause conflict. It can be a contributing factor to underlying causes, but it's not the cause. And every time a politician tells me that poverty causes crime, I go, really? Explain to me why politicians are so corrupt. Why is the ANC stealing money from the raided dairy farm? Why is the ANC stealing money in the asbestos tender? Why is Zandile Gumede accused of 168 counts of corruption? Why is Munir Palapala stuffing cash in his furniture on a game ranch? Why did PPE theft become so pervasive? Where is the $4.23 billion from the IMF, the African Development Bank, and the World Bank that was given to the ANC in 2020? Where's that money at? What about the $711 million given to Aspen Pharmacare from the US and Europe to make jabs against the Rona? Where are the jabs? Nowhere to be found. Yet Cyril Ramaphosa can run around and claim vaccine apartheid all day long. That's the problem here. That's the truth. Matthew, you're asking a real question. That's exciting. Matthew says, what's your opinion on the multi-party coalition? It's not a party, it's a coalition. Chances in South Africa's elections, specifically after the MK party formation, do we have a realistic chance? Yes. Before MK, I became a little bit dismayed at the multi-party charter because it was going nowhere. No one's talking about it. There's no big rallies. They're not working together to accomplish anything. They've just formed an umbrella and say, we're going to work together. But they're not telling people, hey, vote for any one of these parties. Vote for us. Vote for our friends. We are going to change things. They haven't been doing that, and they haven't been getting any traction. So I became a bit concerned. But MK, if it's allowed to compete in these elections, which the ANC is going to do everything they can to stop them, if they're allowed to compete in these elections, MK will bleed the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. They will absolutely bleed them. They will lose control of Durban. They will lose control of every municipality that they have almost without fail in KZN just because of MK, which opens a window. MK is not going to allow. Well, look, Jacob Zuma is a wild card, okay? He is. Jacob Zuma, when he came in office, remember Jacob Zuma is the guy who went to poor Afrikaans communities, squatter camps with Afrikaners, and talked about common heritage and having something in common with Afrikaners. Remember that. People have forgotten about that. I remember that. If he can do that, when there was no need for him to do that, no call for him to do that as president, that was as early days of his presidency before the corruption became so pervasive, there was no reason to do that. It didn't enhance his stature. It didn't bring people to his standard. But he did it presumably because he was genuine. If Jacob Zuma can do something like that, if he can survive the arms scandal, the rape scandal, the Nkonla scandal, the failure to turn himself into prison, the contempt of court, he survives all that, then he can direct that party to cooperate against the ANC in eThekwini, in Port Elizabeth, in Gauteng, and that could be the death knell for the ANC. Yeah, I think it's very real possibility there, Matthew. Very real possibility. I'm not predicting it, though. Daniel Craig was pretty good in Bond movies. Oh, I thought he did pretty well in most of them, but the movies weren't very good, some of them. A sidewinder of an ANC-MK coalition. Well, that's likely going to happen, Garrett. That's my first expectation, is that this is just like COPE, just like the EFF. They don't really have any real differences. They just all want to be in charge, and they all want their attention, their blue light escorts, so they can steal. So there's a very real possibility that MK will align with the ANC because they'll be given ministries. Zuma will probably become like the Minister of Defense or something like that. And they'll be giving bursaries and blue light escorts and all that. So, yeah. Yep. I disagree. MPC may get 40%. Expect a very low voter turnout, which means ANC and EF will take 60%. Jay-Z will get taken out before May 29th. Disagree. I never made any statement that you can disagree with here. I'm confused. Act 77. We can't get rid of Act 77 until we get rid of Josh Shapiro in the governor's house, Mike. It's not going to happen. The Republicans will not gain a 2/3 majority in the House. Here in Pennsylvania, they will not have a 2/3 majority in the Senate, and they cannot overcome his veto. He will veto any effort to legitimize our elections because Democrats don't like legitimate elections because they can't steal those. So nothing going to happen there. Okay, so the multi-party coalition may get 40%. Expect a very low turnout. Okay. No. I didn't say they have a shot at 50%. No. You inferred that. I didn't say that. I was answering his question saying, do they have a shot? Do they have a shot? What are their chances? I didn't say they were going to get 50%. No. You're inferring that. You're inferring that. So the multi-party coalition together with others like maybe MK have a shot. But the ANC is not going to get 60%. No way. And you're not saying that. You're saying the ANC and the EF get 60%. No. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. ANC 38, 42%, maybe, in a free and fair election, and the EFF 10 to 12%. Although they're doing well in some places around the country, but nationwide 10 to 12%. So that brings them in close to 50% between the two of them. Yep. MK polling by social research was done by Victory. Cape exit polling was done by Victory. Okay, so they're all done by the same people, so they're not different polls. Bad signal, says Chevy. If they don't get voted, they can't. I don't know what you're saying there. No, I said they have a real shot at displacing the ANC. Let's go back to the tape. I think the more combat vets we have in government, the less likely we'll go to war. Well, it's a fair assessment. I don't know if it's true, but it's a fair assessment. I think that you may be onto something there. Multi-party charter lead by a strong... I don't know about that, Michael. I don't know about that. Oh, they announced the elections? Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, let's see. It will be in May. Well, we knew that already. President Ramaphosa announced that South Africans go to the polls on 29 May. Presidency spokesman Vincent Mnangagwa said President Cyril Ramaphosa, as in accordance with Section 49 of the Constitution, in the statement released this evening, the President will also in line with the section. Okay, so May 29th is the election date. May 29th. Thank you for that update. Yep, we got it. May 29th is the election in South Africa. That really puts a lot of things in play for me now. A lot going on. DA is going to lose a massive amount of votes along with other parties. Why? Simple. Immigration has skyrocketed past 4 years. Who left DA voters? Perhaps, Arctic. We'll see. Most of the DA voters are coloreds, and very few of them have immigrated. Most of the coloreds that left South Africa have gone to New Zealand, and they did so years ago. Yep. Imagine ANC, EFF, ANC, DA coalition, both would be a disaster for South Africa. True, Michael, but ANC-DA coalition would be a less of a disaster. It would be just a slow collapse. Morales says, can I get your combination ready? Well, yeah, I'm going to have to spend time in Gauteng. Yeah, so, yep, I have to look at the calendar and see what's going on. We have an election here on April 23rd. It's the primary in Pennsylvania, and I'm involved in some activity with that. So I'll be here through that date at least, and we'll see what happens after that. Yes, some South Africans have returned to South Africa recently, so it's hard to say. Ms. Tukatela says, thanks for the election update. You're welcome for that, and you can thank Debbie, who mentioned it was just announced, so I went and looked. Yep, so May 29th. May 29th. Folks, that's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time for MK. That's not a lot of time for the DA. It's not a lot of time for the Freedom Front Plus. Most of them been very quiet. Very quiet. Very quiet. Yeah, it's shocking how quiet some folks are. Let me see. I wrote to someone else earlier today. Let me see. Okay. All right, yep. And I haven't heard back from a few folks. The grandkids would be excited. Well, that's cool, Marilyn. Be nice to see them again. Okay. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to see them. Yeah, no, it's I enjoy my time I spend there. It's a lovely, you guys are lovely folks. It's a lovely spot. So you have honest, what's this? What's written there? I can't read that. You have honest responsibility. What's up with the voting in South Carolina? Well, that's this weekend, is it not? Let me see. The South Carolina primary is coming up. Google, let me check the date. I'll be covering that. Primary. South Carolina primary will be February 24th, 4 days away. Is that right? Biden already won it with 96% of the votes. It's comical. Yeah, Saturday, February 24th. Yep. Yep. So I'll be covering that. They have early voting in South Carolina. What a stupid concept. Yep. So we've got the election for South Africa date. We expected that. I expect it was going to be around the 29th of. So what day of the week is that? A Sunday? Let's take a look at what 29th is. That's around Memorial Day for us, which sucks for me because another holiday missed. April, May 29th. No, it's a Wednesday. May 29th is a Wednesday. That's interesting. Okay. DA got 3.6 million in 2019. Weeks are losing an average 6,000 people per year. We are. Okay. Hello, Roy. Oh, we already said hi to Roy. We've been talking to Roy the whole time. Yeah, Hendo's put up one of the groups. So I know a lot of people are experiencing problems with YouTube informing about the broadcast, and my apologies for that, but I have no control over that. That's YouTube entirely. If you want to be aware of the broadcast, know that unless something is happening, or it's, and so if rugby interferes in the weekend, then I don't do my regular broadcast time. Wednesdays, I go a half hour early normally because I'm on Ronaldo's program Wednesdays with the Colonel. And the rest of the time, every day of the week, throughout the year, I'm on 6 p.m. South Africa time, which means I change my schedule. So right now, that's 11 a.m. But when we jump forward, we spring forward shortly into daylight savings time, then it will be noon for me because it comes from 7 hours to 6 hours. It makes my life slightly easier here. Another public holiday. It says, yeah, there you go, Ben. Another public holiday. Take Mr. Palapala and Biden's driver's license. Well, hey, Cats, how's it going? Super Tuesday worth taking note. Can't we just appoint Trump as president already? Well, those are just to be on the Republican ticket. That doesn't mean he's going to be president. He's got to win the general election in the fall. People take off the rest of the so sure Thursday, Friday will be holiday. Yep. The June 2nd is a holiday. The ballot box discrepancies will be replaced with illegal immigrant rolls flooding the votes for their patron. Yep. Last count, we are seeing 104,000 aliens in Pennsylvania, more than the other states. I'm sure the numbers are higher than that. That's probably what we know from the corrupt Biden regime dumping these people in our midst. But there are a lot of people who filter into Pennsylvania from Maryland, from New York, from New Jersey, and from Canada. Yep. Get my computer back tomorrow so I don't have to type it with one finger. Well, that sucks, Mr. Ducatel. I hope your computer comes back. I didn't know you didn't have it. Yeah, Super Tuesday is worth it. Sure, it's worth it, Matthew. It'll be exciting to see all the vote totals come in from all these different states. But let's see who's voting on Super Tuesday primaries. Okay, Google Super Tuesday. Okay. Okay. Here we go. All right. So this is a day when 1/3 of all the Republican delegates are awarded in a single day. So These are the places voting on Super Tuesday: Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and American Samoa. Now, the Supreme Court will have to, well, doesn't have to, but it's likely to render its verdict in the case that Trump took to the Supreme Court about appearing on the Colorado ballot before this date. And here's the thing. If the states have already excluded Donald Trump from the ballot, there's going to be lawsuits because they will have been judged to be invalid, removing him from the Colorado and from the Maine ballot, yet they're going to have a vote and he's not going to be on the ballot. Wow. So the Supreme Court needs to act very soon. It's already February 20th. Super Tuesday is March 5th. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about a handful of days. 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today is Super Tuesday, and the Supreme Court has yet to act on this case. Wow. Wow. V-Day is May 29th. Footsec ANC. That's good. That's good. Well, you all got to go vote. You can complain about the ANC all you want, but if you don't vote, you don't vote. Nothing will change. Nothing will change. So, in all those states, Trump will win. Oh, and American Samoa, I think I mentioned that too. There are, let's see, California, Colorado, Minnesota, and Virginia are unfriendly to Trump. The rest are very friendly to Trump. Bitcoin driving the load shedding, is that what we're saying? That's crazy, man. That's just cray-cray. Yeah, no, Bitcoin mining. All that computer processing power sucked up for, bogus creation of someone that really is not. Anyway, I'm not gonna go on about Bitcoin. I don't know why people are so in love with it. So, yeah, the bottom line is that people will trade what they put value in, whether it's silver coins, gold doubloons, cowrie shells, slaves, food. Will South Africa see violence before and after the election? Yes, I think there will be some minor violence. We're already seeing it happening with ANC causing chaos in a few places. I think we're going to see some disputes in KZN, in Gauteng. Yeah, I think we will see some minor violence precipitated by political actors. Yeah, I do. I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see it, Arctic. Yep. Yep. Hey, Fiona, how's it going? How's it going? Good to see you there. 6 gigawatts, stage 6. That is worth over $1 million per hour. It's a good steal. Wow. It's a lot of money. Yeah, load shedding's back. It's never gone away. Yeah, Brian, I trust it as much as a clot shot. Yep. Speaking of which, new reports came out on that story today, which I can't talk about on YouTube, but new reports talking about millions of people, and a study with 99 million people who got the jab. 99 million jab recipients, and what has happened to them since then. Bit of an alarming story, but I won't talk about it on this platform. I'll be accused of misinformation. So we can't talk about that, even though it's factual, even though it's from medical authorities. But, unless it's the medical authorities that YouTube approves of, you can't say things. If the ANC loses provincial power, I reckon we're in the crap. Well, let's be clear. The ANC will not lose the Northern Cape. They will not lose Northwest. They will not lose in Mpumalanga, and they will not lose the Eastern Cape. All 4 of those provinces will remain in ANC hands, regardless of what they do between now and May 29th. All 4 of them. Because those provinces are full of people who are low-information voters who foolishly believe the ANC brought them liberation, but ignores the reality that the ANC has brought them destitution, poverty, racism, bigotry, state collapse, and service delivery failure. Yeah, they just ignore that. Joe Negrini says, my gold or Bitcoin is in African beef and boss money. Okay, Joe, thanks for sharing that. Okay. Will South Africa get the balls to drill for oil and gas? No, not as long as hateful, rich, privileged, white, leftist elites and their colored friends stand on beaches with signs moaning about sonar testing 100 miles offshore. You'll never get it. The Karoo has lots of natural gas in it, lots of potential for fracking. But when the lies told about fracking are told, it just kills me. They're like, oh, it pollutes the water. No, it doesn't. It goes right past the water table. Can't you make a plan to have your talks heard in South African Parliament? I fear that there will be very few people in South African Parliament would listen to me. The DA doesn't listen. They think they know everything. The Freedom Front Plus might listen. ACTP might listen, but that's about it. Everybody else will walk out. Well, thank you for the like, Fiona. I appreciate that. Been watching the stream on YouTube while I ate my supper. Can only stay a few minutes as carers here. All right, Fiona, good to see you over there. Errol Weideman says, oh, that was Errol said that. Okay. Yeah, so I appreciate people giving me a like. It's awesome. 111 people here. What's driving the viewership tonight is because I was talking about the ANC fearful of Mkhonto we Sizwe. They really are. They will pull out all stops and they'll contort. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be willing to pay bribes to judges. I'm not saying they're doing it. I said I wouldn't be surprised if they do it to make sure that MK doesn't appear on the ballot. Pretty frightening prospect. They're trying to damage democracy. So here's two things, two ironies. So number one, the ANC is claiming that democracy is at risk if the Mkhonto we Sizwe party, which by their accounts filed an improper application to be approved, and that was approved. So it's not the party that's wrong, it's the people who approve the party who are wrong. So they want to remove them from the rolls because they're a threat to democracy. Now, how are they a threat to democracy when they complied with what they were told to do? Okay? The threat to democracy is not Mkhonto we Sizwe. It is the ANC, which is seeking to disqualify people who are a competitor, a threat to their hegemony. That is who is the threat to democracy. And by the same token, we hear that from Europeans, from the leftist media in the U.S., from all over the world, that Donald Trump is a threat to European collective security. Donald Trump will pull the U.S. out of NATO, except he has a track record. Donald Trump never pulled the U.S. out of NATO. He threatened NATO allies if they didn't start meeting the obligations they agreed to in 2014, that he didn't see a reason for staying in NATO. But Donald Trump can't pull us out of NATO. It's a treaty obligation. Only the Senate can vote to remove the treaty. Only the Senate, not the president. He cannot unilaterally do this, just like Barack Obama could not put us as part of the Paris Climate Accord. He signed it, but it has no weight of law until the Senate ratifies it. The Senate never ratified it. The Senate also never ratified some of the arms treaties with the Soviet Union, so they don't exist. They're fictional. Donald Trump is not the person who's undermining European collective security. The Danes are. Denmark announced yesterday they're giving all their artillery to Ukraine. All their artillery. So the northern flank, which was exclusively until Putin's invasion and Joe Biden's proxy war in Ukraine, scared the Finns and Swedes into joining NATO. Until then, our northern flank was the Jutland Peninsula of Denmark, bottling up the Soviet and then Russian fleets in the Baltic Sea from Leningrad, St. Petersburg. Denmark, which had hundreds of artillery pieces, is going to give all of them to Ukraine, where they'll be destroyed in conflict and more people will die as part of a massive artillery war. Why? Who is undermining collective security in Europe? The Germans, who failed to meet their 2% obligation, spending just 0.9% of their GDP on defense, free riding, leeches. The Brits, who also aren't meeting 2%, but claim they are because they're counting retirement salaries. The French, sending artillery pieces. The Estonians, sending equipment. The Poles, sending jet fighters, MiG-29s to Ukraine. Who is undermining European security? These countries, which are stripping their arsenals to equip Ukraine for stuff that's being destroyed. That's who's undermining collective security in Europe, not Donald Trump. He's not even in office. Obama bombed a lot of countries without authorization. By the way, here's another thing. So this idiotic court decision claiming that Donald Trump doesn't have immunity, serving as president and performing his official duties, will come back to haunt Barack Hussein Obama and Tom Wolf. Tom Wolf is the former governor of Pennsylvania during the Rona pandemic. Barack Hussein Obama authorized a drone strike that murdered a naturalized American citizen and his son in Yemen. Extrajudicial, no trial, no charges, no court appearances, no trial by jury, which is guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution right here. A jury of your peers, you're guaranteed that. None of that was done. Barack Hussein Obama just said, kill him, and they killed him. If Trump doesn't have qualified immunity, Obama doesn't have qualified immunity, and he will be brought up on charges for murder, first-degree murder, homicide, and he should be. If we're going to play this game where they take community away from officials for doing their jobs, then that needs to happen. Tom Wolf, his administration under his guidance directed nursing homes, forced them to take COVID-positive patients into nursing homes. It happened in New Jersey under Murphy. It happened in New York under Governor Gropalot, Andrew Cuomo, and it happened here in Pennsylvania under the direction of Tom Wolf and his health minister, Rachel Levine. Now, the prima facie evidence of their corruption and their crimes is no more obvious than the following. Just hours before this was put into effect, sending these people into these nursing homes, Rachel Levine removed her mother from a nursing home and put her in the Hershey Lodge. Why? The Hershey Lodge doesn't have the care that a nonagenarian 95-year-old woman needs. Why was she put into that lodge? Because Rachel Levine and Tom Wolfe knew that sending COVID-positive patients into nursing homes where people have compromised immune systems, who are in the weakest condition of their lives, in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and centenarians, is a petri dish to kill our elderly parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and great-grandparents. And thousands of them died. While the Wolfe administration breathlessly claimed that they had to violate the Constitution to protect Pennsylvanians because of this once-in-a-century scourge, while they made that claim, the reason for... It's not working over here again. There we go. The reason for so many deaths in Pennsylvania in 2020, 75% of the fatalities attributable to the scourge were in nursing homes. Almost entirely preventable. These people committed crimes against humanity. And if qualified immunity doesn't apply to politicians, Barack Hussein Obama, Joe Biden, Tom Wolfe, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. Legally, that is. USA destroyed Libya just because Gaddafi wanted gold back. That's not true, Daniel. That's simply not true. That's factually incorrect. The U.S. did not destroy Libya. First off, the cowardly Barack Hussein Obama didn't even lead the effort in Libya. The Libyan government was murdering Libyan civilians under Muammar Gaddafi. Libyan opposition pleaded for international support. The African Union, including South Africa, demanded that NATO take action. They wanted NATO to stop Gaddafi from killing people. But what they didn't realize is that by demanding that NATO is unlike the African Union, they actually do take action. And so NATO took action, and they bombed Gaddafi. Libya wasn't destroyed. Where do you get this Libya's destroyed? Libya's not even remotely destroyed. Virtually no damage to infrastructure occurred during this brief bombing campaign that undermined the security forces who were murdering Libyan civilians. And then Libyans caught Gaddafi, and Libyans murdered Gaddafi. So I'm not really sure where you get your information from, Daniel, but it's factually incorrect. I was in the military, and I was involved, not in that operation, but in the command that was responsible for that operation. Gaddafi wanted gold-backed currency for Africa. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Gaddafi wanted to be president of the United States of Africa. That's what he wanted. And he funded mosques in Uganda and Niger and all over the continent to curry favor with people. No, your information is not accurate, brother. Sorry, it's just not accurate. Time to say things as it is. Well, I just did, Daniel. I just did. Sad time for many in Pennsylvania. That's true. Madeline says, man proposes, but God disposes. Yep, they killed a lot of elderly. These times make it hard to quit smoking. I think I'm in need of serious attitude adjustment, says Roy. Well, the problem with smoking is once you start, that's the challenge, folks. Gina Molman's here, checking in late today. That's okay, Gina. We don't mind you checking in late. It's good that you checked in. Good to see you here. No, Daniel, it's not a question to correct. You can challenge my analysis. You're welcome to do that. But the problem is that the media tell people these things. Yes, Libya suffered infrastructure damage, but there was very little infrastructure damage, and the country wasn't destroyed. The number of casualties is less probably than what's happened in Gaza since October. Don't hold me to that. I'm not making that claim. I'm just saying the number of casualties in that conflict were probably less. I don't remember the exact number. But the Libyans are responsible for that conflict, and the African Union. It's not hilarious. It's pathetic that the African Union demanded that the world take action. And South Africa said, intervene. And then people intervene, and they're like, they attacked Africa. And Museveni got pissed off because his buddy was Gaddafi. So Museveni's had a beef with the United States and Uganda ever since that conflict. And that's not something that can easily be overblown. When I was in Uganda, the African Union professed their anger at NATO. But NATO had a liaison team that was based in Addis Ababa who interacted with the African Union every day. Every day. I was there in the early stages of it because they didn't even have a house where they could operate out of or an office building. They were living in the Hilton Hotel and getting lots of Hilton points every day while NATO paid for them to spend $150, $170 per day to stay in a hotel for a dozen of these people. Imagine the thousands of dollars pissed down the drain so you can have a liaison there. But this is politics, folks. It's politics. People will profess one thing and believe in something else. People will make a claim about one thing and they do something else. That's the truth. Oh, sorry, Daniel. I misunderstood your comment. See, that's why it's good for clarification. Thank you. Rachel Levine person is not a he or she. Yeah, look, I agree with you. But whatever. I'm not going to die on that ridge over Rachel Levine's genitalia. I'm not going to die on that bridge. I agree with you 100%, but it's a censorable offense on YouTube if you say that. So, but it is interesting. I did watch people on the ICJ hearing earlier today in the chat saying horrific anti-Semitic things, and YouTube did nothing to stop it. YouTube did not censor it. It was there. A guy kept putting it in. I reported it as hate speech, even though I don't believe in such a thing. I think it's all stupid. But yeah, YouTube allowed all that. That channel was not censored. That's a major news outlet. There were no moderators from that news outlet there to control the chat. And these hateful, anti-Semitic, Jew-hating trolls just published their stuff there after chat, after chat, after chat, after chat. It was crazy. Yes, Daniel, they censor for stupid things because of the agenda. You are correct, and that's why I can't risk that. I already took a bit of a risk talking about some other things today. New chapter of Fiona's book. I thought you left, Fiona, but thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the Rachel Levine thing. Okay. When it comes to politics, stupidity is a handicap, says Napoleon Bonaparte. Good quote, Menage a Trois, and it's a true statement. Stupidity is not a handicap. In fact, it's an advantage. I'm at 13 hours now. Woohoo! I got 4 more hours. I'm at 13. I'm getting 5.69. So 4, that's 20. Oh, 5.7. That's it's about 22, and 13 is 35. I'm going to be close to setting the record again today. Anyway, they do censor stupid things. They do. All right, folks, it's been 2 hours. We still got 100 people here, but I'm going to wrap it up. You guys are awesome. We had 700 tune in today. Once again, the lead story for today we focused on is the new party in South Africa, the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, which hopes to steal the legacy of the Spear of the Nation from the ANC. Not that I endorse it or like it, but they are trying to run in this national election, which is now scheduled for May 29th in South Africa. The ANC is desperately trying to have them removed from the election rolls. Yep. Just like Colorado and Maine trying to have Trump removed from the primary. The world has figured out long ago how to use Christian values against Christians. That's true. That's true. Fiona says, I've left now. Okay, cool beans. We're all going to leave now. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good day. Anticipating Thursday. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday, too. Zoom is the latest. Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Be sure to hit the like button, and we'll catch you all later as people. Now I'm shedding viral particles. It went from 106 to 98 as people see the getting out of here, trying to save their data. Only place I join to obtain updates. Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate it. Good to see you guys. Take care. Be safe out there. And unless there's a breaking story, I'll catch you tomorrow. My regular broadcast will not occur. Just letting you know that now. And I won't be on Ronaldo. I won't be because there's a political event taking place in Pennsylvania tomorrow, and I will go to be present for it. I don't know if I can broadcast from there. If I can broadcast, I will. If not, then I'll tell you about it after the fact. But I will not be broadcasting my normal time tomorrow. I might do a late or a mid-afternoon, which will be like a Night Owl's equivalent tomorrow. So don't look for me tomorrow, folks. I'm already forewarning you now. And Andrea Fick just gave 350 Rand Super Chat. Thanks for that, Andrea. I really appreciate it. Awesome, guys. Have a good one. Take care. And be safe out there. Good night, everybody.